WonderCon. Hi, it's so great to be here. I know, and I'm personally thrilled to talk film and TV with this amazing group of creatives. So let's just get started, shall we? So my first question is for Eric. Naturally, it's about One Piece. This series is based on a manga series with a massive fan base. So how do you balance staying faithful to the source material while also ensuring that the adaptation feels fresh and engaging for both existing fans and new audiences?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. I'm super excited to be here at WonderCon. We had terrific showrunners, Steve Maeda and Matt Owens, and of course we had Oda, the creator of the manga, to really guide us, and obviously they know these characters inside and out. But one of the things we did, we really tried really hard to iron out is in the pilot, the world building and making sure the fanfare was just the right amount, but also not totally turn off new audience members. And we had a lot of Easter eggs in the show of young Shanks and Smoker and Mihawk. But really what we were trying to do, and we were trying to make sure that the fanfare, the Easter eggs really landed, but also what we were trying to do was do world building. And we had Ian McShane give us VO to explain this world, because it's a tricky world. It's combining a lot of genres all into one. And we wanted to make sure that we were immediately understanding this world, the execution of Gold Roger, and what that really sparked, which was a pirate revolution. And with that pirate revolution, with him being executed, everyone veered off looking for the One Piece. And I think we pulled it off.
Right? What do you guys think?
I will say it was when we had the premiere on the Santa Monica Pier, and because you're so close to the material, and we watched it with a big group of fans. And when those Easter eggs came on of young Shanks and Mihawk, everyone was cheering. So the whole team was there, and we're like, okay, I think we nailed this.
Well, I think you certainly did. Gary, my next question's for you. Each of the shows you've worked on, such as Key and Peele and Miracle Workers, End Times, and Workaholics, has its own distinctive visual style. Can you briefly walk us through the process of creating and implementing each show's unique aesthetic?
So when you say briefly, you mean I should be succinct in
Come on, we're both from Jersey.
This?
Let's go.
Oh, it's so hard. Well, when I was a kid, no, but my whole life has always been comedy and art department. Even when I was a little kid and I was drawing in my bedroom and I used to audio record The Tonight Show every night. And then when I was in college, all of a sudden it was like, wait a second, I could do this for a living. I didn't have any connections. I didn't have any relatives, anything like that. But what I did was I jumped into the world of comedy in production, and my entire career has been based in comedy, like Key and Peele, like Workaholics, like Miracle Workers. And my process has always just been, I wasn't formally trained in it, so let's just go crazy, make it as realistic looking as possible, and entertain ourselves, the crew, entertain the director, and then ultimately entertain everyone at home. So the process, succinctly, is on a show like Key and Peele, we did 86 sketches a season in 7 weeks. 10 a week, 2 a day. So when you watch Aerobics Workout or you watch Substitute Teacher, we shot that in 1 day. And while we were shooting one, we were setting up the afternoon after lunch and building the next day, and then 7 weeks in a row, we would churn those out. The process was handed a binder of 86 scripts, break them down, draw it in my moleskin, do renders, tons of research, mood boards, show them to Jordan, show them to Keegan. If Jordan goes, that's funny, boom, that's an approval. Okay, we're moving on. Show them to the crew. The set decorator starts shopping. The location manager starts finding these locations. Construction starts building. And you see how I am right now?
Yeah.
Imagine an entire art department in that frenetic pace, because there's no time to think, second guess. And so you're like, what can we do to entertain each other? Easter eggs? What can we do to make Jordan laugh? We'll put a picture of his family on the wall and we'll Photoshop it. Like, what can we do? What can we do? We're making a sewer in Workaholics. What can we do? Oh, what if we put chocolate muffins in the water? That's funny. We're all laughing. And so that's how all those shows, because the dirty truth is, it was all about craft and no budget and no time.
Yeah.
So if you're manic with your team and you're creative and you're a little crazy, you get Key and Peele, Workaholics, and all the other kinds of shows that I've worked on in my career.
Fantastic. I can't believe you have a full head of hair because I've worked in the entertainment industry for almost 10 years, and that's one of the most aggressive schedules I've ever heard.
It's real.
Yeah, it's real. On the production side of filmmaking, I want to ask Blaine a question. How does producing for platforms like Sundance and Tubi differ from traditional studios productions? You know, what unique challenges and opportunities do they present?
Yeah, so I've only really worked on one studio film called The Noel Diary, which is on Netflix. It was a Christmas movie. And I would say when you're working with a studio, a lot of it, there's just so many more meetings, and you have your studio executives who have to approve everything. On the indie filmmaking side, when I'm producing, I basically have to self-generate everything. As much effort as I put in will push the movie as far as possible. So for Border Hopper, Sundance was a fluke. 15,000 shorts are submitted. They accepted 53 this year, which I heard was a 0.37% chance to get in, which is wild. But once we were in, I put together our entire publicity campaign. I made sure we had a trailer, our EPK, reached out personally, emails to all the organizations I knew, like it's a Latino film, so I reached out to like the Latinx House or the Latino Filmmakers Network. But a lot of the producing was how much effort I put in to make that successful. And then for my to-be feature, Dark Obsession, that was me and my other producer basically reaching out to as many sales agents as we could, going to networking opportunities to really build our network out to find someone who would want to distribute it. And then once it's in the hands of your sales agent, then they're kind of shopping it around to different networks. Mm-hmm. But once it's on Tubi, our distributor wasn't doing any press, so we contact someone like Impact 24. Our other publicist was October Coast, and then also myself, I'm running our Instagram campaign and reaching out to friends and being like, Mom, send it to the whole family. Because
that's sometimes the best way to do it.
Yeah.
Moms are intense.
Every view I get 10 cents. Yay.
Is that true?
Yeah, it's not a lot. So you need a lot of people to watch it. Please watch it. It's free on Tubi. So yeah, indie filmmaking is really like me in my bedroom emailing as many people and creating assets as much as possible to get the word out.
It's amazing. Yeah, a lot of hustle. I'm exhausted. Chris, I'd love to hear about Empire Queen, the golden age of magic, because creating a world with its own magic system and lore must have been such a fascinating process. Can you share a bit about how you developed the film's unique magical elements, and did you pull from any specific existing mythologies or folklore?
Sure. Well, briefly, folks, hi, thank you for having us. Our movie is actually inspired by a music video that I did a number of years ago. I'm also a singer. And what we wanted the music video to look like would be the trailer to a high-end fantasy motion picture. So we put that together, and it did really well for me and got a lot of recognition. Cut 2 years later, the idea came to us, well, why don't we make that a movie? So a lot of the original cast members in the music video, like C.L. Post and Mary Elise Hayden and Jason Scholes and Janosik, are all in that video and now translated into this motion picture. And I think for us, the magical elements, magic is always difficult, isn't it? Because if your character can do everything, then there's no challenge for them. So Aura is learning magic throughout the whole project. So she has, the first time we see her, she's learning a spell that she's not doing very well. And then throughout the picture, she winds up getting better and better. And then towards the end, where she captures the most magical instrument in the land, she's, basically Neo from the Matrix. So we like the idea of structuring it so that there was a great arc for her.
Mm-hmm. That's so fantastic. And Nicolas, you composed the score for Empire Queen, which was so wonderfully epic and whimsical. How did you approach composing music for a film that celebrates magic and then kind of almost makes the magic tangible through sound?
Yeah, that was a long process. That's for sure, especially when you work with an orchestra. But Chris and I had many meetings about the score and what we wanted to do. And when I finally saw the final cut of the film, I was like, okay, this film is big, has big, bold themes, like, a hero's journey, especially a trio of heroes going on this journey, fighting good and evil, romance, swashbuckling adventure. So I think the score, when we sat down, it has to be an orchestral score, kind of with choir and big themes. So then I went away, wrote themes and motifs for Ara, Jade, and Sterling, the main trio of characters. And Ara's theme is like whimsical, but then becomes very majestic and noble when she learns her magic. Jade's is very like powerful, bombastic with brass, and Sterling is like romantic because he's like a world traveler and a lover and all this cool stuff. And then we have then it turns dark because then we have the evil queen, Gwendolyn, and her minions and Lord Voss and these people that it just becomes a little bit more aggressive. And I recorded the choir. I had them like muttering weird syllables.
As you do.
And they're trained to sing like very properly, and they're like, "What is this stuff?" But it was like this, like kind of whispers like that, and they absolutely loved it at the end, and we had a great time. So, pretty much that's the process. You go back and you write these themes, and then hopefully Chris likes it, and then
I will say we literally had tears in our eyes. Kiki Coral, our executive producer, the first time she heard it, she was weeping. It was so beautiful. And our movie's almost 2.5 hours, and he wrote 2 hours and 10 minutes of original score, and it's orchestral, and the choir, it's just beautiful. We listen to it as a soundtrack all the time. But to comment real quick, Nick used the vocal choir for sound effects.
Yes.
As he was mentioning. It was really beautiful and unique in your approach.
It was such a treat to work with live musicians, and and then it just came together beautifully. And we recorded in 3 different places. It was L.A., Budapest, and then in Maine. This beautiful choir church and stuff like that.
That's so cool. And we all know, it sounds like you two had an amazing collaboration, and we all know that collaboration is so key in filmmaking. Nothing really happens without it. So I'm curious as to, were there certain things that you did or communicated to each other that ensured that this collaboration was so wonderful and successful as it was? 2 hours and 10 minutes of music for an almost 2.5 hour film is kind of unheard of and amazing.
Yeah, the film is literally drenched with music. It's part of the character. In fact, we call it a character in the movie. And Nick was so responsive and so great to meet with. We just chatted. We had lunches together, and Jay was part of that as well. And
I would send you sketches, right?
And sketches, right? And
back and forth.
He did get scenes. We would cut finished scenes, or we'll call them rough cut scenes, so that he could really marinate in how to address that. And that was helpful, wasn't it?
Yeah, and then we would just go back and forth, like, okay, that worked, that didn't work. This needs a little tweaking. Can you change that note? And then we finally got to the final point of the score. And I think it sounds pretty cool. It's on Apple Music and all the streamers.
Oh my gosh, guys. We have to download it after the panel. Okay, my next question is for Kristi, all the way yonder. You had a very interesting collaboration with director Ben Brewer on your latest project, Arcadian, which actually premiered earlier this month at South by Southwest. Congratulations. What can you tell us about your process and how it influenced the creative decisions made during editing?
Yeah, Ben was great to work with. He was one of the visual effects supervisors on Everything Everywhere All at Once. And so we had a really deep collaboration, story and performance-wise, but also with visual effects. And we have a pretty intensive visual effects aspect of this film as well. And so it was fun because it's fun to work with directors that understand post, and it's also fun to work with people that he had a very strong and unique vision. And so even before we started the movie, we were talking about, the style of the movie, the tone of the movie, how we would want to linger on certain shots. And so it was also shot that way, where we would be on a character and then sometimes we'd move off of them and we'd still stay in the shot and we'd be on someone else. And so it was a very, very collaborative that way. We talked really in depth about every scene. And then we also had the really unique challenge of, there's a creature in the film, and when to introduce that, and we had scenes that are no longer in the film where the creature was introduced earlier, and so we pushed that down the line. And so it was just a really fun collaborative process with him to work through all of that and have him be so familiar and intensive in the VFX process as well.
Yeah, because that's really rare. Usually, especially like on big studio movies or heavy effects movies, they might hire someone who just has done like a beautiful Sundance intimate Indian, it's a whole different language that you almost have to learn how to speak. So that's so cool that Ben was fluent in it.
Yeah, exactly.
I want to circle back to Eric. One Piece is known for its dynamic action sequences and colorful characters. How do you ensure that the pacing of the episodes keeps audiences engaged while also allowing for character development and world building?
Well, two scenes that really jump out to me were in episode 3, Kaya and Usopp talking about their love or hiding their love for each other. And also in episode 4, Zoro climbing out of the well. These scenes were scripted shot, directed, and cut in a very linear fashion. And there was phenomenal footage. And I think it might have been Oda who gave us a note. Hey, these scenes are really good, but they're just taking a long time. Is there a way to continue? Is there a way to pace this up and still retain the character development that we're trying to set out here? Mm-hmm. And what we did is we intercut these scenes. So in the Kaya Usopp scene, when they're talking about their love for each other, we intercut that with Luffy and Zoro talking to Usopp, Kaya talking to Nami, and one person would say something in one scene and the other person would answer it. And it created a question-answer intercut. And it just moved the scene a lot faster through the course of the show. And we were able to really land on these beats a lot longer. And with Zoro climbing out of the well, again, very similar. He had a flashback as a young man when he was being trained by his good friend Kuina, and they wanted to be master swordsmen. He's present day, he's trapped in the well, he's trying to get out of the well, and her funeral. And again, these scenes were just phenomenal footage. Emma Sullivan was the director, and the footage was just beautiful. But it was just taking a long time. So again, he gave us a note. We intercut these scenes so that the flashback was more rooted in him getting out of the well. He's using this as motivation and inspiration to help him get himself out of this dire situation. And what we found, but with this intercut, was that we were in the edit, we were able to utilize more footage that was shot that we didn't have a place to utilize during present day, during the edit. So we're really able to just land these beats even more. And we were able to shift the pace so that we would have a big fight sequence in the middle of this. But then we wanted to pump the brakes for a minute and just live in close-ups of Zoro, present-day Zoro's face while he's struggling to get out of the well. And to me, they're just they're my favorite scenes. It was terrific collaboration on everybody's part. And I'm just so proud of those two scenes in particular.
As you should be. I think something that always kind of floors me is how many discoveries can be made in the filmmaking process in post. Because I know personally, I'm a writer and a producer, so I'm usually dreaming up the thing and then making it, and then I give it to someone like Kristi or Eric and be like, fix it. Please. Okay, my next question is for Gary. Comedy often relies on visual gags and set design to enhance the humor, which is no easy feat. How do you balance creating practical yet visually engaging sets for shows like Key and Peele that allow for comedic timing and performances? Because you have to be a character, but you can't get in the way of those two geniuses doing their thing.
It's funny because we're talking about post and effects, and the first before I came up here, I went on Instagram stories. I said, I'm doing WonderCon panel. What sketch should I talk about? And someone DM'd me to talk about the valet sketch.
Yes,
the Liam Neeson's and the Bruce Willis and the games of all of that. And so it reminded me of a story about how the art department works. So as a production designer, I'm the production designer, but there are art directors, set decorators, graphic designers, art PAs, scenic painters, construction, art department coordinators. There's an entire nucleus of creatives that come together and say, how are we going to create this sketch? How are we going to do it on time? How are we going to do it on budget? How is Jordan and Keegan going to like it? Is the director going to be happy? Is Post going to be angry at us when we, did something wrong or whatever? So there's a lot of intensity, and it goes all right down to the art department PAs, and that goes to like people who want to work in production and they think, you start as an art department PA, and sometimes your idea is just as valid as mine or the director's because of the intensity of pulling it off and making it happen. Whoever has the best idea, that's what we're going to go with. So regarding the valet sketch, I don't know if you guys remember that sketch, but Jordan and Keegan play two valets that are standing in front of a hotel shot
It's
at
an
Universal
amazing sketch,
Studios.
guys. You have to look
And
at it.
they're so excited, they're so intense that at the end of every sketch, they say, we just met. Do you mind? Sure. Bruce Willis is my and something happens. They jump in a hole, they explode. Well, on this particular one, they needed to explode. Now, if you were working in the art department, what was the first thing you would think? Oh, we'll just have them. Do you mind? Go. Can you do me to do you? Yeah, okay. So we stop right now and say, okay, now let Post deal with it. Well, someone in the art department said, or I forget who it was, somebody in production said, what if we just get Ken dolls and fill them with blood and make them explode? Now, your first reaction is, yeah, but people are going to think that's cheap and stupid, and we live in the age of CGI and post. Why would we do that? That's what made it funny. So you can imagine an art department PA running downtown, finding two, and it wasn't Ken because we don't want to get sued, so it was like
Off-brand.
Yeah, like Stefan dolls. Costumes built the exact valet costumes.
Uniforms. Yeah.
Special effects came on board, and we painted the faces to look like Jordan and Keegan as best as we could, filled it with guts and goo and blood and slime, and set it up on a soundstage. And we wrapped it in black. Everyone's wearing plastic. The whole set is wrapped in plastic. You can imagine the amount of people in this room standing around staring at two dolls. Because we have the footage that's already shot of this, and now we're trying to make the dolls do this. And once we got it, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, special effects, press the button, the dolls exploded, blood went everywhere, it was so disgusting. And when you watch that sketch later on and you Google Key and Peele valet dolls, there's 2 seconds of Ken dolls exploding with, and then post, thank you, editing and everybody else added lots of blood, guts. But that goes into the craft of saying not everything needs to be punted to post. Mm-hmm. What can we figure out on set? What can look real? What can we make? And it takes a unique style of madness. I go back to, if you work in the art department, you have to be a little insane because you're like, yes, let's do that. Let's figure it out. Now, just quickly, I'll wrap up by saying that show was so intense that we wrapped late. The next morning, the art department call was 4 a.m. and we were shooting Pirate Shanty, which was a musical pirates thing. And we built this whole set. And we got to the location at 4 a.m. and the doors were locked and no one was there to unlock the doors. And we had 2 hours to set up before crew came. And so we, art department, broke the lock and broke into the location and set up. And then the crew showed up 2 hours later. So I'm hoping I can describe to you guys the madness of what working in production can be like, and you just have to get it done.
Yeah, some call it madness, some call it ingenuity.
Okay.
As a producer, I'm like, I want to hire him because that's the whole Ken doll situation is a lot less expensive than very expensive CGI. So genius. And also, I feel like you kind of were the predecessor for the Barbie movie. So
Yeah, exactly.
I think we all learned a lot from that anecdote. Kristi, going back to someone who's in post and ought to be in post, handling both editorial duties and opticals for Arcadian is an interesting and I think rather uncommon role to take on. Can you explain the specific needs of the film that led to this decision and how it impacted your workflow throughout the post-production process?
Yeah, definitely. It was a really unique situation. So when you lock a film, usually my team would send the entire movie onto a lab and they would do the final versions of what we colloquially call opticals.
Words are hard.
Good save.
What we call opticals, which are like reframes, punch-ins, camera shake, things that we can do on the editorial side that don't necessarily need to be passed on to the visual effects team. But we had Ben had such a specific vision that what we ended up doing on this film is we sent it to the lab for online, and then they sent it back to me, and I did all of those manually. And we had like almost every shot in the film was retouched. And then we also still had visual effects coming in. So as visual effects shots were coming in, we were reframing, we were reworking, and so it was unique that way because we basically, we just managed every shot ourselves to make sure it was exactly how Ben wanted. And wow. I think in the end, it really did make a huge difference on the film because it was such a collaborative process between this very small team. Even the VFX team was it was 4 of us just, wow. Pushing through, finishing the movie visually. And I just think it really, his vision was great, and I'm glad that that's what we did to ensure that his vision was realized.
And I want to ask you a quick follow-up question, Kristi, because as someone who's usually dreaming up the very expensive visual effects sequences and shooting people against the blue screen, how many effect shots were in Arcadian? Do you have a rough number, just to demonstrate how much work that they put in?
I'm almost every shot had a retouch as far as reframes, but if we're just talking visual effects shots that had actual VFX, I think at least 750, probably more.
Wow.
That's a lot. That's a lot.
How much did that cost?
Yeah, right.
Not my department.
Amazing. So my next question is for Blaine. It seems like we're finally entering a period in the entertainment industry where representation and diversity is given the importance it should have been all this time. We're not there fully yet, but I think we're slowly making steps. So Blaine, as a producer, can you share how your productions prioritize inclusion in film, both in front of and behind the camera?
Yeah, I think for me personally, it's always about story first. When you work on a film, especially features, you're on that film for 2 to 3 years. And then once it's distributed, that film has a life for 10 years. So I like to make sure that I really love a story and that story is really important to me. And so for me, I'm mixed race, I'm also bisexual. So I want to bring those stories to the forefront and stories that I haven't seen before. Right now I'm on a panel, I'm the only diverse person here, so I do think there is some work to do. But
I'm Latino.
You're Latino? Oh, amazing! Hey.
But of course we sat them right next to each other.
Too.
Yes!
I worked on Key and Peele.
And then once I have the story that I really love, I also direct and I produce as well. It's making sure that all of our department heads are inclusive. I like to make sure, if I'm doing a very Latino, Mexican family story, I want to have someone who possibly has that lived experience and can design and create in that way. Making sure that department heads are inclusive and really love the story. And then I love to make sure that there's gender equity on the set and try to keep that even as much as possible. And also just keeping a open place of collaboration, as you said earlier, ideas from your art PAs, making sure that everyone kind of has a voice and it feels safe to, if they don't feel comfortable, can come to me and be like, I'm not feeling comfortable. And I'm like, how can I help you? Mm-hmm. And then it's about supporting other diverse stories as well. So I do my stories, but all of my friends making their things, I show up to their screenings, I'm reposting them on Instagram. And I think we all kind of have to help each other.
Yes. And Blaine, I was just going to jump in and say, as a department head, I'll be honest with you guys, there's nothing I can do about being a white guy. But what I can do is when I'm lucky enough to get hired on a job, and let's say it's Key and Peele, or let's say it's your movie. Let's say you and I really hit it off, and the next movie you're like, well, Gary's not diverse, but me, hires 100 people the minute I get hired. In my contract, I have crew approval. So I am in charge of hiring up to 100 people in the art department. And I think it's my job to make sure that those people are diverse. Yeah. Men, women, all ethnicities and races and ages. And more importantly, I think, and this is what I tell producers, is it's important that they give me the opportunity to hire a bunch of art PAs. And if you give me the opportunity to hire a bunch of art department PAs, because what everyone might not know is that TV shows and movies are unions. So how do you get in? How do you get a job in television if everyone's union? Well, you become an art PA. And if my responsibility is making sure to hire a diverse art PA staff and making sure that the next generation, when I'm retired and I'm speaking on panels, their next generation 5-10 years from now is a production designer because they started as an art PA because someone gave them a chance. And so that's something that I really try to do, and I'm one step down from what you do. So I, as a below the line department head.
Yeah, a big thing for me is giving people their first jobs. If
Yeah.
they have been art coordinator or something like that for years and years, I'm like, you're ready. You know what to do. I've given a lot of people their first job, as I'm not that powerful. But what little power I have, I love to pass it on to people who I think like really deserve it and may not have this beautiful long resume that other people have.
Thank you guys so much for that kind of back and forth, because I think it's so important to talk about that kind of stuff, and also not just having people of color or people who have different gender expressions or sexual identities lead, or of different ethnicities lead the charge. It's a great, Gary, like how we can all be allies and band together and make film sets look as diverse as the world around us. And I also personally think that makes film better, the film you're working on, incredibly better. So, yay! I don't know about y'all, but if I was a baby film person, and I saw this panel, I'd be like, how do I get to do y'all's jobs? Because it sounds so much fun. I want to explode Ken dolls and make magic through sound and like edit One Piece. So what advice would each of y'all, maybe we'll go Kristi down, what advice would each of y'all give to aspiring professionals looking to break into the industry in your respective fields?
As far as editorial goes, I would say keep practicing, but also learn how to communicate your ideas, because you're going to be the one that's in the room with directors, producers. So be able to talk about why you made a decision, be able to talk about why you chose that performance, and like practice that even if you're by yourself in your room editing. Like, why, really think about why you made those decisions, because that's the question that's going to come up in the edit room. And so I think that it's such good practice. It's something you can start really early on. You can, and like we're saying, you know, I'm the same way with like our post PAs, our my AE, like I'm the one hiring my side of the team. And so, you know, you can have those experiences talking with your editor, even ask your editor if you can cut a little something and get their feedback. You know, just practice all of the things that you know will be doing in the future as an editor.
Yeah, I would. How many people here are interested in working in production or television and film, or are trying to break in? So a lot. There's no secret. It actually is a big secret. The secret is, how do you break in? And like for me, I grew up in New Jersey. I didn't have any connections. There was no cousin or uncle or anything like that. I just figured it out and hustled. And this was way before internet, social media, Instagram, or anything like that. I figured it out by a flyer that was on the wall, and I ripped it down, and I called, and I stalked the producer and sent them a letter and showed up and got an internship. And 2 days later, the host of the show, this was the Joan Rivers show in New York, the host of the show said, we need a sign, we don't have anything to do it, have the art kid do it. I was the art kid. That was my first credit. But no one taught me how to do that or how to make that happen as a career. My advice to everyone is get a mentor immediately. And how do you get a mentor? Just think about the 3 of your favorite TV shows. Whatever you love to watch, whatever you're binging, what are those shows? Go on IMDb. Go to the department that you love the most, whether it's, if for me, I could speak to art department. Text me, follow me on Instagram, find my email. I'm a young kid. I live in North Dakota. I don't know how to work in this industry. I don't have any connections. I'll help you. And if it's not me, find the set decorator or the art department coordinator and say, I'm a big fan of your work. I'm following you on Instagram. How can I do what you do? You'll be so surprised to know how generous people are with their time with young people. But at the same time, running parallel, you have to have a good Instagram. You have to have a website, and the website can be your student film and 1 credit, who cares? You have to show someone like me that you want to do it. Mark my words, if you hustle like that, and if you are focused and have the goods, even if you're not great, but you have the passion, someone like me we'll say, I'm doing this music video this weekend. There's no money. I can only pay you $100. Are you in? And you'll say, yes. There, you're in. And that starts your career. And I think that's the only way to break into art department that I know of. And I've been doing this for 30 years.
Amazing.
Yeah.
It's great. I think also something and then I want to keep going down the line, but I think it's something that, Kristi and Gary are touching on is so much of this industry is almost like passed down, like the trades and the crafts are passed down. So even just quickly, like even just subscribing to a year IMDb Pro can really help, because then you get kind of better contact info. Because I know Instagram is like message requests. So you can, usually they'll have like the person's representative or their direct contact to take all of Gary's amazing advice. I'm going to be quiet. Eric, what's your advice?
Well, Kristi and Gary stole all my answers. So.
I hate when that happens.
They can fix it in the edit.
Yeah,
Post will fix it.
I agree with everything you guys said. When I was first starting out, when I joined the Editors Guild, they gave you this book with editors, assistant editors, everybody that was in the union, and it was started at A, went to Z, and their contact information was there. So what I did, and it took me a long time to go through the book, but I emailed everybody.
Great, that's awesome.
And I would work nights doing sports, reality, digitizing, and then during the day I would go and email people, and eventually someone would write me back and say, just like you, I'm doing this small picture, I need an assistant editor, are you available? It pays nothing. And you're like, yes, I'm in. And you just go and you prove yourself that you are committed to work in this field, you show a desire, and people see that. And there's so many people out there that recognize someone who is hungry and wants to work and will take the time to mentor you or give you advice and sort of shepherd you into the direction that you're hoping to go to. And you use those experiences for the next job. And not every experience is a good experience, but I'm a firm believer that every experience is a learning experience, and you can utilize these experiences to shape your career.
And I'll just say quickly, because I know we're moving down the line, but the reason why you want to have a mentor and someone who's been doing it forever to ask them questions is because you're going to get such resistance from your parents, your relatives, your friends, your spouse, who say, who do you think you are? That's not a real job. You can't do that. And what I always tell people is the next time you go to the movies, sit there and watch the credits. Every single one of those names in every Marvel movie or whatever you're watching is a union job. People make a paycheck and it's a real career. So you need a mentor to give you that confidence.
For sure. Blaine, what's your advice?
Yeah, so I'm a professor at Cal State LA in the MFA film department, and I actually did a whole class on this, and the students were like, how do I get a job? So I just brought up my resume and went through every single job on my resume, and it has never been through LinkedIn or applying. It's all been through parties, friends I made at US. Frankly, it's from parties.
Your social life becomes a job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is.
I'm hoping to get a job after this from one of these people.
Parties were number one, but not like just a normal party. It'll be like there's like mixers for up and coming writers, or different Latino or queer parties I go to, or there's this program called Nosotros, so I'll go to those parties, and then meeting people within there and being like, what are you looking for? And you're kind of soft pitching yourself the entire time. And then friends of friends, and then that one job leads to another 5 jobs underneath it. And then another big thing I told them is when you're first starting out, you have to work for free most of the time. You can sometimes come in PA, but when you're first starting out, especially if you want to be a department head, you are going to have to work for free for 2 to 3 jobs, and then you'll have a reel and some body of work and can create your website and then start moving on to paid jobs in larger departments. But also a big part of the working for free is find your community and find your friends who can help you make those things. So it's all of you doing a passion project, and you're not just like, oh, I'm working for free. It's like all of us together as a group doing that. And then as you come up, all of my friends now over the last 5 years, we're all kind of rising together and helping each other together and moving forward, which has been really beautiful and wonderful.
Yay. Yay. Nicolas, what's your advice?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everybody's assessment. It's for me, and especially in composing, it's such a small community. I mean, I think all of our communities are very small, right? And
Yeah.
everyone knows each other in town. But my suggestion is like hone your craft, like make sure it's perfection, because when you do get hired, you'll be like at the top of the list. But also, for instance, I'll give you an example. I wanted to work on action movies, so I went to like a fight choreography class, and all these directors were there,
That's
and I was
so
the only
smart.
composer, and I gave everyone my card, and I was like, hey.
Smart.
That is so
Hire
smart.
me.
That is.
That's so
I know
smart.
where the directors are.
Exactly. So it's like just you have to you got to be resourceful in your way of like navigating this stuff and again, find a mentor. It's super important. I run an online forum for composers called Perspective, and it has like 15,000 members, and Hans Zimmer chimes in. And
Who's that?
Just some guy.
Is he like a thing?
And he chimes in and gives advice to all these emerging composers. And then, I'm like, hey, Hans, this guy has another question. Do you want? And we'll go back and forth. I wish John Williams did that, but, he's old school.
Well, he's 90,
Pen,
so we'll
paper.
give him a...
On a typewriter.
And no, but it's find those communities. And if, I'm one of those people that you can, message me on, I'm on all over social media. And message me and I can guide you in the right direction. But it's you have to find kind of your tribe to help you with this. And one last thing, you have to be able to give free samples, kind of like a baker does. So like you said, work for free, give little bits, and then little by little as the budgets rise, you'll get paid. But start small and then, work your way up. I would say that's the best way.
Chris, I feel like becoming a director is one of the most nebulous paths out there. So go.
And I want to add to what Nick said, which is that early on we had our film posted on IMDb, just to put it out there. And Nick contacted us, and this is a really good thing for composers to do. And we just started having lunches together and chatting, and all of a sudden he was our composer. So it really does work that way, and that was great that he did that. And then for us, I think one of the main things that I learned about making our film is we wanted to make a studio-looking film on not a studio dime. And, my directing and writing partner, Jason Schulz, is a wonderful drone pilot. He's actually licensed, and cameraman too, so he knows his stuff. So for us, we wound up having a really lean group of enthusiastic people that all had a committed vision for making this film, and everyone wore a lot of different hats too. So I think get some good gear would be the first thing I would say. If you want to make movies, get a digital camera and get a drone, because drone gives you, 13 different things, from a crane to dolly tracks and all of that. And you can always loop the audio if you have just the blade noises. So I would say definitely commit to your technological advancement and get good gear so that you can really keep it lean in terms of your crew. I think that's probably my favorite piece of advice is that, and then just surround yourself with people you really like and feel really connected to, because it's not always easy, right?
And if I could give just a quick bit of advice as a writer, I would say study structure and then watch your favorite films and kind of see what happens 10 minutes in, 20 minutes in, 30 minutes in, kind of like all these different little buckets, my God, all these different little chunks of time and when certain things happen and why. And as the more you do that, the more you can teach yourself structure and kind of see how it's executed. Because in my mind, once you know structure as a writer, everything else, character dialogue, comes so much more easily, and then you get a lot less notes. So that's just my little piece of advice, because that's everyone's favorite things is notes. We actually do have a little bit of time for 2 quick questions, so cue or line up. These queens are here. Okay, great. I'm so afraid no one would want to ask questions. You in the blue jacket.
That would be me. Thanks. Great panel. This is a comment actually for Gary when you're talking about exploding Ken dolls. I'm an old lady, so I remember Married with Children when they did an episode. When they were doing episodes where Al is falling off the ceiling and they're using a dummy, and it's obviously a dummy, and it's the most hysterical thing in the world. So kudos.
They still, when you go rent, when we have to find those dummies, they still have the same ones from
Oh my God.
Heart to Heart when the guy fell off the building. They still have those. But that happens because television there's so much pressure in the day. You do a 14-hour day, you have to shoot 7 or 8 pages, you're moving fast. Well, the dummy sort of looked like the actor. No one will notice. Plus, don't forget, when those were shot, no one had a VCR or streaming, so people thought they would just see it once on their silly little TV and that's it. Now people are pausing things on YouTube. Look what they did bad. Look what they did wrong.
They could just go in.
I'm just going to say, we could tell it was a dummy, and that made it even more.
Oh, yeah.
Awesome.
Well, promise me you'll watch the Key and
I
Peele
will.
ballet.
Hi, my question is for the editors. I'm an assistant editor. I've been working in television for about eight years now, and I've been editing alongside my editors, and now I have a couple of co-edited credits as well as a feature under my belt. But I'm curious to hear from you guys, what was that experience like going from assistant to editor? What were the difficulties that you faced, or maybe some of the interesting things that you learned as you were actually making that transition onto your first show or feature, whichever that was first for you?
You probably have the more traditional path.
I was very fortunate. I worked on a lot of shows as an assistant. I worked with a lot of experienced editors, 30, 40 years veterans, and I took their advice. I listened to what they had to say. Sometimes they were critical of whatever I was doing, and you sort of have to check your ego at the door and listen to what they're saying and somehow apply it to what you're ultimately going to do. And I was on a show for 7 years called Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Woo! We got some MCU fans.
They were really just very, the producers in particular were very generous people, and they recognized, some of what you said, everybody has, the best idea always wins. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't matter if it was the PA or a director or executive producer. And they recognized people that were hungry and had talent and wanted to work. And of course, we worked really long hours, and that was also part of if you could withstand that schedule. And they were generous enough to allow people like me and other editors on that show to mature as editors or mature in their craft. And what I learned in those positions was feel confident in the decisions that you make, because you're there for a reason. And trust your instincts and trust your gut. And if someone gives you some criticism, don't take it personal. It's
in service of you.
It's in service of the show.
Yeah.
It's great advice.
Say, do we have time for me to answer real quick?
Yes, darling.
So I started in indie features, and I actually used to assist myself and cut the movie. So that's how I learned the whole technical side of it, and was just doing it all for years and years. But then eventually I, did get an official assist and things like that, and realized, it opens up your world once you have an actual team. And so, but it helped me to have that technical knowledge. And so what I would say is my assist, he's been with me for 4 years. And, but as soon as we've known each other for a long time, even previous to that. And what ended up happening was, first of all, I love to have my assists cut stuff if they want to. For me, I think it's the opportunity that everyone should have. But once we had done a couple shows together, I had him bump with me as co-editor on episodes so he could start getting those credits. And on Arcadian, he actually is an additional editor because I had him cut some early scenes. And yes, I was the one that finished it and finalized the scenes, but I want him to have those opportunities. So don't be afraid to talk to your editors about having an opportunity to even cut a scene, because those will grow into episodes, your relationship will grow to the point where you are getting onto the episodes as editor or onto the movie as editor.
That's such great advice. Thank you all so much for being so generous with your time and sharing. Unfortunately, that is all the time we have today. Yes. Thank you so much to our panelists, Chris, Nicolas, Blaine, Eric, Gary, and Kristi, for being here today to discuss their amazing creative work. Thank you all.